Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas. We gathered here today to talk about what seminars are like, what people can expect if they join either one of our seminars or some other great books group to have a book discussion. And people don't know what to expect, and I think there are some people who are intimidated and afraid of, I don't know, that it's going to be so nerdy and so high level that they can't keep up, or they're afraid that they're going to be put on the spot, or I don't know, they have all kinds of fears. And then other people think, I don't want to hear what these other people have to say. You know, they've been on the internet and they think it's going to be more of that. And they're not interested in what these other people may have to say. So I wanted to see if we could describe it a little better for folk.
Sure. So I guess we'd take that last thing first. On the internet, there's a whole lot of conflict and name calling and categorizing of other people, but very little of it is actually engaging in another person's argument. And I think a big reason for that is probably just that you can't see the other person.
Yeah.
So right away, there's a big difference in our seminars. I mean, we don't do politics. We have our 100-year rule. I can talk about Bismarck and Woodrow Wilson, but I don't want to talk about, newer people. But when you can see people, it's harder to categorize them, to put them call them a fascist or whatever. You can do that to people who are at a distance from you, but people who are looking at you that you're sharing, a 2-hour seminar with, that's hard to do, because then they can say, no, I'm not.
Right. So what you're saying is, that's what the entire internet is. And then they follow up with the straw man, and it's not what you said. And then they call you a name.
Right. So you could say a seminar is an exercise in doing so what you're saying correctly.
Right. Yeah. So when we do it correctly, we would steel man somebody's argument. We would repeat it back to them in our own words, so that they said, "Yep, that is what I said." And
yeah.
Then we can proceed.
Right. You want to give them the chance to say that, yeah, you've got me right. This is what I mean, and I stand by it. And then they can defend it or not. Or maybe say, I want to revise. Maybe they don't quite know what they said. I jotted down some things that I thought, I made a list of things that it's not. I thought that might be good to talk about. And you could add some, I'm sure. And one of them I just contradicted when I made my notes. But it's not a class. It is not a class. I see some people market things as seminars online, but what they're recordings that you listen to.
Mm.
And that's not a seminar. It is not at all passive. So that's my second not. It's not passive. So we don't teach, and it's not passive. You shouldn't sit there and attend quietly. You're not getting anything out of it. So I suppose we can pause a minute. Why don't we teach, Scott Hambrick?
Well, because I don't even think you can. I don't think that you can. I think that people can't be taught; they only learn. And I think that the best way for them to learn is through some sort of aided discovery. So when we discuss these books together, we end up, are we really discussing the books? Or are we talking about ideas? And are we talking about ways of thought? Not what we think, but the way we think, how we approach problems. So when we do that, we get to discover these ideas for ourselves and discover these ways of thought for ourselves. And additionally, any notes that I would give or any teaching that almost anybody would do ain't going to be as good as the teaching in some of these great books. I don't know that. I mean, arguably, like all the Aristotle stuff are lecture notes, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But some people say that they were lecture notes and that he didn't. But I don't know of any other great lecture notes that have come down to us through the years. So we believe the books are the best materials, and the best way to deal with that is through dialectic and discussing them with your peers. That way you can meet the books meet you where you are and vice versa. It's perfect that way.
Yeah, I want to get a little more into this idea that we can't teach, you can only learn. So what you're saying is so teaching would be something where I take knowledge and somehow I put them in your head. That I have maybe bullet points or PowerPoint, and you watch the slides and then you leave and you have knowledge.
Right.
And I was thinking about that as I was getting ready, running a how to read a book seminar tonight. My experience, I used to teach college, that you could have somebody go through an entire class and pass it and never understand a single thing in the class.
I've done that.
Right. I think I did that. I did that with chemistry, I think, but that's a long story. But you can regurgitate stuff without ever making it your own and have no learning at all. Learning would be seeing the concept. We've got a Euclid seminar running now, and I haven't been able to attend, but the whole point of doing geometry the right way is not that you memorize what Pythagoras figured out, but that you do the same thing he did.
Yeah, you discover it for yourself using Pythagoras as your guide. I mean, he's your teacher, but you have to discover it for yourself. And if you don't discover it for yourself, you memorize his theorem like it was a magic incantation. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And then that incantation, gives you the side of the triangle, the length of the side of the triangle, but you don't know what happened. But when you discover it the way he discovered it, then you got it then.
Right. So when we say a seminar is not a class, we're not giving you what to think. We are hopefully helping you to think it, but we're not telling you what to think. I have another not. It's not exhaustive. So we've got 2 hours, which leads me to another thing that I put that I just broke for this podcast. It's not planned either. A seminar is not really planned because it can't be exhaustive. There's no way we can cover everything in 2 hours. So we don't even try, or at least I don't try. Right. So we're going to talk about The Republic. Well, The Republic's a great big book. We only have a couple hours. Maybe we have 2 or 3 sessions devoted to The Republic. There's no way you're going to go through every line and paragraph of that. So you probably shouldn't try to do impossible things as a general rule.
Right.
So, you come in, I'll come in. I prepare a lot. You've seen some of my notes. I prepare a lot. I don't plan, though. Do you know the difference?
You
plan is we're going to spend 15 minutes on this, 15 minutes on that, and then we're going to talk about that. I don't have a plan. The plan, what would the general say? The plan doesn't survive first contact with the enemy, or what was Mike Tyson's quote about that?
Yeah, once you get punched, all your plans go out the window or something like that. Yeah,
right. Everybody's got a plan until he gets punched in the face. But I'm prepared, right? I've read and I've thought and I've jotted down things I might want to say. I have some questions. Mostly I write down questions, leading questions, the questions that bug me. And then we show up at the seminar and I'll say, for example, what does Euripides think about the gods? What sort of role do they play? Are they good? And I'll just leave it at that. And then after that, I don't know where we're going. There are a whole bunch of ways you can go there. You can talk about whether Apollo is fair in Alcestis, or whether Aphrodite's got a reason for doing what she does, or maybe you could say they're all evil, or maybe you could talk about whether they exist and what the Greeks mean by it. And you can go.
But what's the good in answering in even talking about those kinds of questions, though? Like, where does that go?
What's the good of it?
Yeah.
The good of it is that you make any sort of insight that's there your own. I think that's a good of it. I think of a bunch of them, but I was reading. So Adler says something about philosophy, that for philosophers, all their evidence is common experience,
right?
Common human experience, which I think is true for us too. that we all are human. We are just exactly as human as Euripides was, as Achilles was, if he was ever real, which I think he was, but which means that we can experience the same things that they do. We can understand them. And maybe, you don't believe that there are actually Greek gods, but they meant something by them when they talked about them. There was some human experience that they think is true. So Aphrodite is a real piece of work in Hippolytus, and she's a goddess of love. I have scare quotes in the air. Love. She's a goddess of love, uh, and she's real trouble. Well, there's an experience that you can share, right? You can
Right.
figure out what they're talking about. Say, well, maybe she is, and maybe she's not real as a person up on Olympus, but she's pretty real. Anyone who's fallen in love in high school knows how troublesome Aphrodite can be. Um,
And I think that the dealing with questions about a book like, or one of these plays by Euripides, like these questions that you just posed, lets us think about these ideas in sort of a laboratory where we've got some distance. Is Apollo fair? Well, we can talk about that, kind of figure out how we might evaluate whether or not Apollo's fair. And then when we're put in some other situation to evaluate whether some other authority or ecclesiastical system or whatever is fair, we've tread that ground when we were objective. And so now maybe we can do a better job when it's hot and personal and in our face.
yeah, yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. That when it's not so in what'd you say, in your face. I had some other thoughts about this. So there's this quote from Socrates that always gets quoted, and they never quite go to the end. We've talked about this before, but he says the unexamined life is not worth living for a man, for a human being, uh, and that's a big claim. That's a big value judgment. That if you don't examine life in sort of the way that we do in seminars, that your life isn't worth living. And what would make it not worth living? Well, it's not worth living for a human. And so I want to connect it to what you said about being able to talk about things in some freedom. If you think about, what is it that makes a human as opposed to a pig or a monkey? What can humans do that, so far as we know, they can't?
We can rationate.
We can rationate. We can think. Yeah. So we can get meaning. There's another line from Adler. Adler says something about constructing meaning out of symbols might be the most amazing things that humans ever do. And we figure out how to do it at age 6.
Hmm.
When you take those dots on a page, those lines on a page, and make a poem out of it, or a meaning, a concept. A concept is not the same thing as a symbol. Walker Percy puts it this way. He's got a wonderful book called Lost in the Cosmos. And in the middle of it, he talks about monkeys and sign language. And it does make sense. You'd have to read it to figure out why it makes sense. But, if you teach the animal sign language and you give the animal the sign for banana, it looks around for a banana.
Hmm.
This is a pretty much a stimulus response. When the prairie dog barks, all the other prairie dogs look around for the predator. It is A leads to B.
Mm-hmm.
There's not freedom in that. I suppose to some extent there's communication and that a signal is given, but signals are given in your DNA in a similar way, and it's not thinking.
It's just binary. If this happens, then I do this. That's it.
Right. But if I come up,
you say banana, I look for the banana.
But if I come up to you and I say banana,
I'm like, there goes Karl again.
that's one. Yeah, that's one response. And you're like, what do you mean banana? What are you talking about? Why are you keep saying banana to me? You have a concept of banana that does not bind you to a behavior. So you can think of a banana without actually looking for one, or you can think of love in the abstract without being in love. Okay, so and we do this when we examine life and we have concepts. Concepts are ways, I guess they're ways to point to reality, but they're a way that give you distance, freedom, So I jotted this down. I thought it made sense to me when I wrote it. Seminars are exercises of freedom. Does that make sense?
Right.
Was I crazy when I wrote that down? So we read these books, and then we have to make a judgment. So it's not just reading, but it's understanding, it's communicating, and at the end, it's judgment, where you have to decide: do I agree with this? Do I think this is right? And that's where the exercise of freedom comes in.
Yeah, and that is best done, I think, with other people doing that same work. You can read these books by yourself, and you can try to go through this process. You can try to do a close reading in the book and argue with the book, or pick out all the arguments in the book, and then judge it. But boy, it sure is better when other people are there to help you kind of check your work. Emmett, our friend Emmett, he says that the close reading is actually done in the seminar, and that may be right.
Yeah, I think he's right.
Damn it, Emmett.
It's okay. Yeah, because I may have focused on one particular thing. Edith Stein says somewhere that the truth is presented to us as a bunch of truths that we have to get to step by step. They're all like these little points in the deep, and you get to one point in the deep, and then it leads you to another one, and it leads you to another one. But because it's fractured in the way it's presented to us, it's real useful to have somebody else say, hey, you're missing this one. You focus so much on this aspect of something that you aren't seeing the entirety of it. And having a group of 15 people that all have their different perspectives is really good. I mean, that seminar last night that I got to go to, we were talking about, it was Euripides. We were talking about self-sacrifice, and had two interesting experiences that helped me think through it better. So we had one gentleman there who'd been in the army. So when we were talking about children of Heracles and fighting and stuff, he's telling, I could see him shaking his head a little bit, and then he spoke up and told us the way he saw it, which was a bit different. We had another gentleman who had recently been robbed at gunpoint. And that was some interesting stuff on self-sacrifice. We always try to rationalize that. Was, if you don't know the story, well, Scott knows the story, but so in Alcestis, Admetus is able to trade his death to somebody else, and he's mad that his dad won't do it for him. And so you can have a lot of conversations rationalizing about, well, when is one life worth more than another? You can come up with all sorts of reasons. Well, maybe if you're old, maybe if you're disabled or something, I don't know. You can come up with all sorts of reasons why one life might be worth more than another. And this gentleman said, I didn't think of any of that. It was his wife was worth more than him. There was no thinking. There was no syllogism.
Right. His wife was, period. The end.
Yeah, the end. Which there's another point of light, right? Another bit of truth that we can get stuck doing logic about this stuff in a distant way and not really be in touch with the primordial experience. But this guy was there to be a friend to us and drag us back to it, right. Which I thought was very useful.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Somebody said, hey, look, you're overthinking this. That's a big help sometimes. Yeah. And you end up going to a seminar and you talk about something like Euripides, and somebody talks about combat. Another guy talks about being robbed at gunpoint, and another guy ends up talking about his care for his wife. And at some point, the seminar ends up being your group. an encounter group, right? There are all these different other, I don't know, contexts where you have like men's groups and these encounter groups or group counseling or whatever, 12-step groups. And when everybody talks about these are closely held opinions and their experiences in this way, a serious community forms. It's surprising and pleasing.
Yeah, I invented a word.
Wait a minute. Let me get my pencil. Okay. What is it?
Amico-factive.
Oh, all right.
In that it makes people into friends.
From the what? How did you build this word?
Amicus means friend in Latin, and facio, be careful how you say that, means to make or I make. And so amico-factive would mean having the property of making friends, making people into friends. And I looked it up on the internet, and nobody seems to have used it before. So I feel good that I made a new word. And now it's out there. So I was jotting down things that seminars are. So first I did what they aren't, and then what they are. And one of the words I wrote was friendly. But that I want to make sure that we're clear what we mean by that. And you were already talking about it. It's not in the sense that we are acting friendly, that we are nice. We're not always nice in a seminar.
You know? I know I'm not.
So, right, we're challenging each other. But I mean that in the sense that it creates friends, that we share a goal. And so, assuming you have 15 people in a seminar, you have 15 people who are seeking the same goal that you are.
It's an intellectual barn raising, Karl.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And you're not going to be better friends than the people you raised the barn with. You know, I saw Witness. I know what it's like.
Right. Yeah, I've developed a great number of friends in this program. You know, sitting in on these seminars and discussing these books with them in Slack, and it speeds things up. You know, if you work with somebody and see them in the hall, hey, good morning, how are you? Good, you good? You know, and it's hard to get into those conversations about things that matter. Because in most of society, you got to keep it polite. You know, I'm making scare quotes. Polite.
Yeah.
You can't be talking about Medea, not the Tyler Perry movies, but the Euripides play. You can't be talking about that heavy duty stuff in that awful play at work, or maybe even with the neighbor or whatever. So it can take months and months and years of knowing someone before you can actually have a conversation about something other than them cowboys or, you know, whatever rubbish that people, you know, talk about as small talk. And this really just collapses that the timeline of, you know, getting to know people and getting serious with people and being authentic with people.
Yeah, I think so. I remember a while back listening to your friend Brett on one of his podcasts. It was one of the first times I'd run into Art of Manliness, and he was talking to, I can't remember exactly, he was talking to a historian about the late Republic, the late Roman Republic. And they were talking about, you know, who the people were and what they were fighting about and why they were fighting about it and why it was important, and having this great conversation. And I thought, you know, this is what people should be doing in their social time. You know, we should be sitting in the parlor having civilized drinks and conversation about, you know, important stuff, not, you know, whether the Bears beat the Packers or not. That it aroused in me a desire for this sort of conversation. I wanted to have more of it.
You wanted to participate in the amico-factive.
Right, exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. And the seminar is where you get to do that, or it is a place where you get to do that. And we're trying very hard at Online Great Books to build it into a community. We want to encourage these people that have shared their leisure time with us to, you know, to build connections with each other.
Yeah.
And
I know when you and I first started talking about this, about doing this whole thing online, I don't know if you were worried about this, but I was really worried about misbehavior, because so much stuff on the internet is just vituperative. And I was really worried about that. And we haven't had any of it.
We haven't.
Zero.
We haven't.
I'm
looking for wood to knock on down here.
I don't even think we need to. But even if you don't do it with us and you decide, hey, I want to start my own book group, and we're going to adhere to the text, and we're going to question the text, and we're going to question each other about the text. And I think our friend Mark Swick, who started to work with us a little bit, he was talking to me about this stuff, and he was saying, in the book group, you should have a discussion, not a conversation. He says there's a distinction there. The discussion is around a subject, and the conversation is a free-ranging, thing. So for his purposes, a discussion is focused on something, and it has a thread that you can follow. And when I lead a group, and I'll tell you, they're probably a little more conversational than maybe yours or even Mark's would be. But if you lead your own group, I think you should, try to make it about the text. Try to make it a discussion of the topics at hand and the text at hand, and then you'll find over time, though, that a community develops there. I've got this group that meets here at my house, and one of our members is Thad. He also leads seminars with us at Online Great Books. He's booked a cabin down in Southeast Oklahoma, and all the guys are going to go out there and eat steaks and play dominoes and just be together for a few days in the early spring. Probably won't talk about books, and it's a community's developed because deep thinking together brings.
Yeah, because of the books, right?
Yeah,
right. I think that. So I had to come to terms with Mark and see what he meant by discussion and conversation, but I think that's entirely appropriate. We were chatting at the gym last night. Someone had asked another member of the gym, somebody at her work had asked her if she just wanted to go hang out sometime. And we were talking about how weird that is.
Yeah, what does that mean? Just
go hang out.
Sit in a room at the same place?
And so I said to one of the guys at the gym, hey, you want to go hang out? And it sounded totally weird. It's the book is the book serves as the occasion. Okay. There's this wonderful poem by Wallace Stevens. I think it's I placed a jar in Tennessee, and round it was upon the hill. It made the slovenly wilderness surround that hill. I'm remembering it from high school. And none of us understood what the poem was about in my high school class. And then I remember my teacher, Mr. Crean was his name. And I think it was Crean. Anyway, he had a very messy desk. And he took a jar and he stuck it in the middle of the desk. And all of a sudden, the desk has structure and order to it. It's all arranged around this high point. And you can talk about everything in relation to the jar that's the centerpiece. The book is the jar. I mean, this is a long way to go to say, yeah, I agree with you. But, what poetry does, what these things do, what conversations do, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm agreeing with you, with color.
Right.
And
right. In your Karl way.
Yeah. So you just get together with the guys, and it might not be a very amico factive. I don't think football games are so much. Mm-hmm. Personally, I used to watch a lot. I don't anymore. But talking to you and talking to friends about Dante, wow, that's good stuff.
Well, except for
you don't know how good it is till you
except
try
for Paradiso. But yeah, I think the best groups, the best friend groups, are built around these experiences. Anyway, you'll see. I just went with Brett McKay last night to a book signing of a guy that wrote a book called Spearhead. His name's Adam. Oh my gosh, I just forgot his last name. The book's Spearhead. It's about the 3rd Armored Division in Europe, and he was talking about the brotherhood between these guys that were in war. And that activity draws these people together. We often have connections to people we were in school with when we were young. And I think that's because we're cellies. We're incarcerated with those people for a time. And, and that experience brings us together. And the books end up being an experience that bring us all together. It tries us and sometimes humiliates us a little bit and exposes who we really are. And those other people get to see it. And that's actually a good thing. And that's what that's what we spend most of our time avoiding doing, is showing what we really are and what we really think. Yeah. Seminars, a whole bunch of stuff, isn't it? Gosh, I don't know if we sold anybody on wanting to do this now. It sounds nasty now.
Well, the thing that you find, because I've done a little work for us in talking to people who don't stick with us. Mm-hmm. And what I find is very few of them have actually gone to the seminars.
Right.
But the people that go to the seminars, they love them. And then they go on the Slack channel afterwards and they're all telling each other, great seminar. Thank you so much. These are great. This is where, you could get a book list. But without having the people to read it with, it's not nearly as good. It's not nearly as good. It's so good. So I did write that it's fun. That was one of my adjectives.
Yeah, it is. We've been playing cards a lot. And playing cards is so good. Everybody's got a shared purpose, right? You're sitting there for the same reason to play cards, and you got to think. And seminars a little bit like playing cards. You've got partners in there. You're not really trying to score points, but you are trying to make a point and be understood. And but you have partners. It's kind of a team thing, and it's engaging. It shares a lot of characteristics with that, and I like all that stuff. And I don't really like people. Like, how does that work? Really?
Well, when people say they like people, what do they mean?
I have a very cynical idea of what they mean.
Tell me. What
I think a lot of people that say they like people don't necessarily like people because people can't be liked. Like, people doesn't exist, right? They're only individuals. But I think they like an audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So the extrovert that makes it his job to talk to you at a party.
Right. Karl,
he thinks he's going to make your life better.
Karl, you have a little of that. You want to bring everybody in.
Well, but if I do, then it's a flaw in my character, because it's like I'm getting my own self-worth by the reaction I'm getting out of you. And I think it's better if I'm actually. So Aristotle says this. So this is a shout out to John Pascarella. Aristotle says that true friendship is a recognition of the good in the other, and a desire for the good for the other for his or her own sake. Mm-hmm. And that's the sense that I like people. I don't necessarily want to chat.
Yeah. I agree. The good in people, just, I cry all the time. Matt Reynolds and I did a guest appearance on a podcast, and we were talking about barbell training. And I told the story about Ed Cohn. There's a YouTube video of him doing a question and answer. Ed Cohn they call him the GOAT, the greatest of all time. He's probably the strongest person pound for pound that ever lived. He squatted something a little north of 1,000 pounds at like under 100 kilos body weight. It's just astounding feat for you people that don't do that kind of thing. Or even if you do it, it's an astounding feat. And there's a question and answer on YouTube, and this young man stands up and says, Mr. Cohn, what's it like to squat that much weight? And he said, Ed Cohn says, what's your best? And the kid, I don't remember what he says, 250, 275. I don't know what it was. Doesn't matter. 275, let's say. And Cohn says, it's like that.
Yeah.
And I can't even tell it now. I mean, that guy understands what being a human is and can
Right.
recognize it in that other young man and can appreciate it and can communicate to that young man that he appreciates that if in him. And that is just one of the goods in Ed Cohn. And it tears me up. And to sit in a seminar and help somebody struggle with the difficult book or the difficult question and to listen to them honestly is much the same sort of thing as what Cohn did with that guy. You know, to respect their struggle with the thing, to respect the fact that they disagree with it and they have problems with it or whatever, is to see the good in that person and to be in that with them. And that's a surprising thing. When I started to do this kind of work, I had no idea that that's what I was going to find and that that's what I was going to be most drawn to about the whole process.
Yeah, I think that's right. I had one more. I have a few more, but I have contemplative is one of my words. So, um, so contemplation is when you're like in the presence of the good or the beautiful or the true, and you're just kind of in awe, you know, and you're looking at it. You keep looking at it. This is so beautiful. Yeah. The way I explain it is, it's like going to the museum, and you just, there's the Mona Lisa, and you're just going to look at it. You're not going to do anything necessarily, but you're going to just be in awe of that. And what I have found is that it is in the seminars that I find myself doing that. And it's not always at the truth that we're getting that's revealed by the book. I would say it's not even primarily that. It is at the people that are in the seminar that are revealing stuff, that are shedding light on the truth, that are really, really neat. and I'm just sitting there smiling, I don't know if you look in at our seminars very much, but I got a big smile on my face just listening to them fight, or this is the best of what humans are. This is what humans should do. I'm so proud to be a part of it and be able to witness it. I mean, I like your Ed Cohn story. I think there's something similar going on. I don't cry as much as Hamburg does, but it's I have been. It's just starting to see what wonderful things human beings are, and which is, I guess, maybe that's the main thing I get out of a seminar.
Yeah, you take your boot off their neck; they're pretty good.
Yeah.
That Spearhead book I mentioned a while ago, I had to look it up. Adam Makos, Makos. It's kind of a Stephen Ambrose style World War II, kind of narrative history, and it proves to be good. I think I'm going to have to read that thing. Yeah, the using the books. So I mean, this is kind of maybe where the liberal arts thing comes from. Is that So liberal arts. It's shared. The liberal. It shares a root with the word liberty. It's about being free. And I happen to think we could get all seminary on this, but I happen to think that that when we're free, that's when we're the most human. And when you're not getting lecture notes, you're not being taught, and it is your consciousness struggling with the ideas. That's when you're the most human. And when you're not having to, when you go if you go to a lecture at the local school, when they're at their best, there's something different than what I'm talking about right now. But they're not always at their best, right?
Right.
If you go to a lecture and then you go take a test, you're actually being tested on the lecturer's notes. And you're rarely actually being tested about the thing that was at hand, whether it was you go to a lecture about Plato or the Pythagorean theorem. But when you go to the seminar, there are no notes. There's no mediator. There's nobody between you and the thing, and you are free to grapple with it, and you don't have to grapple with some other authority. You get to meet the person on equal ground. And it's so, in that respect, it's freeing and it's egalitarian. I could go on and on. I don't know if this is useful to anybody, but people, they're like, you should write more about the seminar in the FAQ on the website. I'm like, I don't know what the heck I would say in an FAQ. Like, it's too much. The whole thing's too much, and it's too interesting, and it's too complex. So I thought you and I would talk about what it might be to us anyway.
Yeah, it'd be like writing an FAQ on love. What's it like? I can't tell you what it's like. Go do it.
Yeah, it's something more than amico-factive. It's beyond that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So when you lead a seminar, Karl, what is the shape of the thing? What's it like?
Well, the shape is, it doesn't have a shape because I don't know where it's going to go. I would prefer lively. Well, it can't be scripted. So I have questions ready to go, and I will generally start with a question. And then I'm just trying to surf, and pick the wave that I want to ride. But I don't want to force it into a channel. I don't want to make it go a certain way. It ought to be surprising. I will then drag it back to the text and say, well, let's connect it to this, because you do want it to be a discussion. It can't just be 2 hours of us talking. The discussion gives us something to look at. So we're all looking the same direction. So having a common text is good. I like to poke at people. I lie a lot.
Is that virtuous, Karl?
Well, yes, because I'm not strict on the question of lying. I think Kant was wrong. I think Kant was so clearly wrong that he should have thrown out all of his philosophy just when he got to the lying question. He should have realized that he was completely wrong about everything. But that's a long story. No, I don't always say what I believe. I will stand up for people who are, who I don't agree with, because I want them to get a fair hearing. So say we read Medea, which we read. I've done twice this week. That's about as many times as I want to do Medea in 1 week.
Yeah.
Medea is a wonderful, wonderful play that I hate because it's so good. And Medea and Jason are fighting, and everyone's taking Medea's side.
Yeah, it's like Jason of Jason and the Argonauts. It's his old lady.
Yeah, and so I started arguing for Jason. Said, well, he's got a point, doesn't he? And I make the best case I possibly can for Jason as if I'm on his side. And, I don't. So I will do that. If there is a position that is worth considering that nobody's bringing up that I don't necessarily believe, I'll bring it up anyway. Because I want the discussion to keep going. I don't want it to be one-sided. So, yeah, so I lie, prevaricate. I suppose it's not technically a lie because I'm not. I don't know. I'm not trying to deceive.
Right. Yeah. So
take that, Immanuel Kant.
So these things are 2 hours, and we do them online, and we use a little online meeting software. So you can, if you have a webcam, you can turn that on, and people can see, and you should. It helps. So you put on your headset and you turn that on, and we run it for 2 hours, and you can see everybody. And when it looks like the Brady Bunch on there, all these different faces, and we talk for 2 hours. And 2 hours is never enough. We always end up having to cut it off anyway. And I always call. I always start it exactly on time, and finish it at exactly the appointed time. And then, of course, people are free to stay after that. And they they almost always do. Back to Swick, he says, I have started a whole bunch of Iliad discussions with what is war, and he says, oh no, that's going to make you have a conversation. You need to ask them, what are these people fighting about? And then later on, you can say, are they in a war?
Yeah, I have a dirty trick that I do on the Iliad.
I want a dirty trick. Tell me.
Of course, now it won't be secret. but I'll have them all tell me who
Mm,
their favorite characters are and who their least favorite characters are. Go around the room, get everybody to speak up. And then after usually they'll give a reason why. And then we go around the second time. I say, now take your least favorite character and tell me why what he did was rational and correct and the best thing he could have possibly done.
right. That is a dirty trick.
To have people defend Agamemnon,
Yeah.
you know. But anybody who's been in charge of people, anybody who's had to make decisions or be in business, you start to look at Agamemnon a little more sympathetically. He had a rough
Yeah.
job.
So, I'll do that with the apology, make everybody say guilty, not guilty. But the amenities do it there too.
Mhm.
And that's it. That making people take a stance and then defend it or flop on that. So it's good. It's a good trick. So if you're doing it, running a group at home, those are good kinds of tricks. Anything that can make people declare a position and then either defend it or take the contra of that's pretty good.
I also try to look at the people and see the ones that are sitting there quietly,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll call them by name and say, Ralph, what do you think? What are you, generally they're thinking,
Yeah.
but they're just not talking. And if you call people by name and you put them on the spot a little bit and then make room for them to speak, you'd be surprised sometimes you'll get the best contributions from the guy that you thought wasn't even paying
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah. I love when you got to turn the camera on or be face to face so that you can see each other's faces and you can see their eyes. People will be talking and I'll see half of the room look up and to the left and the other half look up and to the right. I know that they're wrestling when they do that. And then you can see what these people are doing and where they're, and to some degree see where their mind is, and then ask them, I just saw that you were thinking about something there. What did you have there? We need to know that. And, get all kinds of little treasures, Yeah. Every time we open up enrollment, I get questions from the new people that say, well, where's the outline for the seminar? Where's our homework? And, there is no outline. Yeah, or actually, there can be, but you need to bring it so that the seminar can be about the things that you want to wrestle with and that you want to talk about. You won't be able to monopolize that time. Even if you wanted to, you just won't be able to. There are other people in there that are gonna work with you, and it's going to make it hard for you to keep on your outline. So don't think you're going to be able to run it, but you should bring the stuff to the seminar that you want to talk about. And when it's going best, Carl, you don't really have to say anything, do you?
Right. It just show up and turn the camera on, and then everybody starts. And then the job of the interlocutor, the guy running the seminar, is just to break up fights, and if any of them happen. Yeah, I don't want it to be about me, really. I could have I could do my job very well and not say a word for 2 hours.
You bet. Yeah, and and you said break up fights. I've never had to break up a fight. We do have to like cut one line of discussion off sometimes and bring it back to something else. But that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all these people should come and try it and do it.
Yeah, do one at your house. Get started. Start one and lead it. You'll be fine. Just assigning someone to start the meeting and stop the meeting and kind of just keep pulling it back to the text is 80% of it. So if there's if you're a group of peers and you're going to go meet and discuss the Iliad, just have it saying, "Hey, Susan here, she's gonna bring us back to the text. If we get off track and call the quitting time, you'll be surprised how much that helps." And then over time, you'll get better and better at it. You should do it at home if you're not going to join it. Well, you should do it at home, and then if you can't do that, you should try it out and do it with us.
Yep.
What else do you want to talk about, Carl?
What else do I want to talk about? We talk about
We
bananas
talked about
already?
bananas. We talked about. I've already forgot your word.
Amico
Amico
factive.
factive. Yeah.
Yeah, so we talk a little bit about why people are uncomfortable doing this. I was struck by something Adler said in How to Read a Book about we get stuff packaged so that there really isn't any choice in the matter. So he's talking about how we consume media, and I think he was writing in the 40s or 50s when he wrote this book. But if you watch stuff on television that presents itself as an argument, it's not really an argument. It is a conclusion that you are then to just accept due to the way the packaging is done or the way the music or the lighting or whatever. Um, it's the end result of rhetoric. And we like that. I think we like that. We like not having to put anything at stake and make a judgment. And seminars, some people find them uncomfortable because, like you say, there's no outline, there's no homework, there's no grading. How do I know if I did
Yeah.
it right? How do I know if I've reached the right conclusion, the acceptable conclusion? I remember I had a young man in a metaphysics class a while back, and discussion was going great. And there was a conclusion that he was thinking himself toward, but he wouldn't draw the conclusion.
Mm.
And I said, well, why won't you draw the obvious conclusion to what you've said? And he said, well, I don't want to be incorrect. High school or a college guy worrying about being correct. So we've got this idea that there are certain correct ways to think, and thinking the correct way gives you an endorphin boost, right? You get likes on Facebook, and it makes you feel good that you've pressed the right button. But there's no freedom in that. Whereas you're coming to a seminar just with the book in your mind and taking a stand, this is an exercise of freedom, and that's scary. But it's so much better.
Yeah, it makes me sad.
That the guy wouldn't draw a conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty formative for me, that moment.
Did you get him in the boat? Did you get him to?
No, I don't think so. No, he was worried. Wants to fit in, he wants to be on the right side, whatever the right side is. When you join us and get to the Republic, there's this bit in the Republic about all of this. People like the cave. It's comfortable to be in chains watching the screen in front of you. There's no danger in that. There's a little bit of danger when you take the chains off and you have to figure out what's true for yourself. So, I mean, we emphasize this all the time. We say, so there's no notes. There's no outline. No, we're not going to record the seminar. You can't watch it later. There's no homework. There's no grade. We don't want you to read we don't want you to read secondary material. The Idiot's Guide to the Iliad. I don't want you to read that because it's going to depress your freedom to read the book, to think for yourself.
And you're enough anyway.
Right. You're sufficient. Yep. You are sufficient for the task.
These damn books. You are sufficient for the task, and you don't need a mediator. And, and we start out when we're 4 or 5 years old in kindergarten with a mediator. And, you need but you need a guide, right? You often need a guide. I mean, how does a little kid know that they need to learn the alphabet? Well, we have a guide. And so we need a guide, but the kid's the one that learns the alphabet. The teacher didn't teach him. The kid learned it. The teacher was, it might have been your mom. Hopefully it was your mom, right? Was another medium. You could have gotten the alphabet from a book. You could have got it from a YouTube video or Sesame Street. But the teacher is sort of an interactive medium, I think, on one hand. But when they're at their best, they're a guide. So we use the books as the guide when we're reading them. And then when we go to the seminar, our peers are the guide. and hopefully we make some friends and learn something good and interesting about ourselves, and have fun and have a pretty cool hobby.
Yeah.
Gosh, we talked and talked and talked, and I think I'm just gonna have to stop because I could talk forever. But go to onlinegreatbooks.com and go to our blog, and you can read all these interesting blog posts there that we've got here. We got the Iliad, the Odyssey, and Controlling One's Passions. How to read a book or like an explorer by one Karl Schudt. Socrates, Beethoven, and Swans by Karl. There again, he's prolific. I met Socrates the other day at the gym. Pasquarello writes What Thrasymachus can teach us about self-examination. All kinds of interesting blog posts there about these great books and about what we do here. Karl's When to Read a Book. Go there and check that stuff out. We put out a couple of blog posts every single week about this hobby, about this reading and these great books. And I know there are lots of readers and lovers of knowledge out there. So if nothing else, go check out our blog and add that to your RSS feed, and hopefully will help you in your journey. Anything else, Uncle Karl?
Thanks for letting me be on the podcast.
Did we have a discussion or did we have a conversation?
I think we had a discussion. It was all about the seminars.
I think we had a discussion, and I think that it was amico factive.
Right. The seminar was the jar that we placed in the middle, and then we talked about it.
Excellent. The end.